afternoon, everybody. I want to talk today about language quality as a foundation of enterprise content strategy. And here I'd like to think that I'm representing not my department of technical publications, but the entire cross-functional enterprise content working groups that we've had at Nutanix for some time now. The great challenge that Nutanix is undergoing right now in the content space as well as in business generally is with the expansion of our product portfolio. Approximately 1 year ago, we had essentially one product. Our slides show it as three, AOS, AHV, and Prism, but they're really three sides of the same triangle, not three separate products. So again, about 1 year ago, this is what our product portfolio looked like. And that's the product portfolio that we started with when the company launched, shipping its first product in 2011. In 1 short year, we've gone from 3, or essentially 1 product, to 15 products. In this expansion, there are numerous complicating factors. The first is that Nutanix started its life with on-premise software, or enterprise software. So customers would usually they'd buy hardware from us directly with the software installed, and then they'd install it in their data centers. In this expansion, we've really taken the idea of hybrid cloud to heart, and many of these products are SaaS products. So it went from 7 years of building processes, especially in the content space, to deal with on-premise enterprise software, and now we're operating SaaS products. Of course, complicating factor in that regard is that SaaS products often release much more rapidly than enterprise software does. We were pretty quick, releasing major versions every 3 to 6 months, but SaaS products are often 2 weeks to a month, although my experience has been that they have often not been releasing quite as frequently as they told me their ambitions have been. Next complicating factor is that many of these were acquisitions. So from being a pretty close-knit company with one product, now we were bringing in smaller companies from outside and having to integrate them into our processes and the culture as well. Finally, final 2 complicating factors is bidirectional movement. All of our products that were originally on-premise products were now moving to be SaaS products also, and all of the SaaS products that we had, whether they were acquired or developed in-house, were moving to become available on-premise. So a lot of movement on pretty much every dimension, all happening over the course of a year. The background of content strategy at Nutanix started with the Technical Content Council, which we convened in late 2015. And this was a grassroots, cross-functional, just a collegial group of representatives from my team and education, UX, support, technical marketing, really anybody who had interest in content. And it was just a forum for us to get together and try to help each other out. Frequent topics of conversation were localization and terminology, where we'd all meet and say, hey, we heard from marketing or product management that this is a new term for something, but we don't have any usage guidelines. How's that going to look in your material, and can you help us out? Or I just got a requirement that now I need to start localizing stuff. I've never done it before. Do you at least have a vendor? What are you doing over here? And I want to stress that this is a grassroots effort, and what I mean by that is that we had no executive sponsorship, which means we had no money. We were just trying to help each other out. We did, however, have 2 particular deliverables from the Technical Content Council, and that was a style guide and a glossary. We adopted the Microsoft Manual of Style as our base style guide, and then created annotations and overrides and so on, but fairly brief. And then also a terminology list in our glossary. Much of the technical content at Nutanix lives inside the support portal, which was a custom-built application. So in the lower left corner there, under documentation, is software documentation and hardware documentation that is produced by my team, but also the knowledge base and solutions and technical marketing information lives on the same portal. So we don't have silos on the front end. After a couple years, we had achieved pretty much what we could in the Technical Content Council as a grassroots effort without any kind of executive sponsorship or funding. And in phase 2, we gained executive sponsorship from the CIO, and with funding from her, we were able to engage a content strategy consultant. The recommendation, after talking with content producing organizations across the company, and it was a very broad net. It was not just tech pubs, education, and support. They talked with IT, they talked with legal, they talked with HR, they talked with finance. And the long-term goal was having our content available in a cognitive system to aid with findability. But the first phase was to start with structure, to get a handle on all the content that we were producing and have that in more structured forms than we did before. Also conducted workshops of workflow, taxonomy, and content modeling. After that point, the working groups began their evaluations and implementation. So there's one line on the slides, and this is the part that really took a long time. Steps 1 through 3 was about 6 months or so of effort. Step 4 was about a year or more of effort, is ongoing, actually. And then that same consultant implemented Acrolinks. And that brings us really to today, more or less today, 6 months ago, is how long we've been working with Acrolinks. So this is all fairly new for us, and we're just getting started. So what the starting with structure looks like, again, I want to stress that this effort has been cross-functional from the beginning, not at the department level, not tech pubs trying to come up with an implementation or education or support, but we've been working together across, over time to. It may have been expedient at some points if we had only been trying to implement things at the department level, but we felt it was the right thing to do long-term to stick together and be able to recognize the benefits from the activities that we were doing across the company. So this is where, this was a slide as I was putting it together that led me to change the title from language quality as a pillar of enterprise content strategy to a foundation. Because this common terminology and style at the bottom really was the key to the whole thing. And there were times when other activities were at risk, and my position was that if we get that part, we've come a long ways. We don't have in place a dynamic delivery system yet, and we'll see how that goes. We do have a CCMS that's not fully in place. It's not in production yet, but we have made some steps there. But even if we didn't get to that level, if we had the common terminology and style, and secondarily a common taxonomy, that would be a huge win for the enterprise content strategy. With the taxonomy, for example, there are a multiplicity of systems. That's not something that can be easily overturned overnight, and there may not be the political will to do that. But if we have a taxonomy, and I implement it in my system, and another group implements it in their system, then we at least still have some commonality. And of course, that applies to the common terminology and style as well. So the groups up here that are listed are the first groups that were identified to move into full content strategy-oriented operations. That's my team, Technical Publications, the education team, the support team, solutions and technical marketing, and product marketing as well. Now, a happy accident that's happened is that when the UX team found out what we were doing with Acrolinks and what Acrolinks did, they said, wow, that sounds really great. We'd love to be able to apply that with our in-product content. That's not in place yet. They're completing a POC at the moment. It's looking very promising at this point. The idea is then that the UX team and UI developers will be able to run Acrolinks to check strings and other content that appears inside the user interface. Right, metrics dashboard. This is new also. It was developed by a development resource, or software development resource on my team, just launched last week. And these are the 4 areas that we're tracking right now. You see Acrolinks is there in the upper right corner. My VP requested to change that to language quality, so I don't have to explain to him every time what Acrolinks is. So these are pie charts, so we're tracking our average score, overall score, and average clarity score. We've got these other metrics that are available here. One that's really key for us is case deflection. An advantage of having the documentation live inside the same portal as the support knowledge base is that case deflection is tracked not only for support KB articles, but also for the documentation. What case deflection is when a customer goes to the support portal to open a case, as they're entering the title and description of the issue, there's some search going on in the background, and they're presented with some KB articles or documentation that is thought that might help them resolve their issue on their own. And then case deflection is a measure of how often that open case is abandoned before the case is even opened. And this is really key because we can put a dollar value on a support case. So if we say a support case costs X amount of money, and we have prevented Y number of cases from being opened, that's how much money we've saved. And also, this is not my metric. Case deflection is not a TechPub's metric. That is actually owned by the support organization. If there's a question about the validity of that, well, talk to support. That's what support is saying the case deflection is. It's not what I'm saying the case deflection is. We do have feedback, customer feedback on our support portal as well. So in the lower right corner on every page of documentation, a five-point rating scale. And then the user has an option to add in any additional comments. Those comments, as they come in, they're triaged, and for 1, 2, or 3 star ratings, then there will be a defect opened against the documentation for the tech writer to follow up on. Because most of the time, users on the support portal are authenticated, we can get their email address and we'll follow up with them directly. That's been very successful. I know that the conventional wisdom inside the technical documentation area is that customer feedback, you generally get very low volumes and very low quality. I don't actually know why, but we've been quite successful in this. Had this in place for about 8 months. It was suggested by a manager on the Bangalore team, and I wasn't all that enthused about it at the time because of everything that I had heard. Everybody said, yeah, don't bother, you just never get any feedback, and whenever you do, it's not of any use. But he was excited about doing it, so I said, okay, fine, go ahead and do it. That was put in place around 8 months ago. We've gotten a lot of really good feedback, high scoring, which has been gratifying, but more importantly, specific actionable comments, things that we could fix. And then just our raw topic hits. And there's screens behind each one of these as well, so we can drill down into the data a little bit more. All right, so I think this is, I had an expanded list of challenges here, so I'll talk around this. As I mentioned, we have had our CCMS was delayed, or is in place now. That does reflect a delay over our original schedule. It's in place, we're putting the final touches. I expect we'll be starting to produce some content out of that at the end of this month, most likely. For the dynamic delivery system, that is not yet in place. 1 year may be optimistic because it's not in place. I don't know. It could go longer. And then, of course, with the number of years that we're talking about here, there have been changes in the business context and organizational structure in a variety of ways. And then that also means a loss of interest by some organizations. We have had some definite successes, though. My team is starting to use Acrolinks. The writers just took to it immediately. I thought I'd have to do a little bit more selling, but especially some of the more junior writers were very happy to have Acrolinks. They felt like they were getting good feedback, getting that consistently, which is key. Marketing is also using it. Our corporate website was relaunched about a month ago, and Acrolinks was involved in the kind of reshaping of the content for the new website. Support is using it as well on the knowledge base articles. Now, the support engineers who originate the articles don't have access to Acrolinks. They also don't have the permission to publish. There's something of an editorial process that happens with the knowledge base articles, and it's kind of that editorial group that has access to Acrolinks, and they're running Acrolinks before articles are published. I should say also that there are two authoring models that are in place at Nutanix. One is a more linear kind of approach where there's we'll call it an editorial model or a program managed model where the material is document-oriented for the most part, and authored by subject matter experts. Then, after the technical review cycles and then the editorial review cycles, that goes over to the publisher, and they'll make or editor and publisher. They'll make the editorial changes based on what Acrolinks says, and that's the point at which Acrolinks is run. And then it will be published. And then the maintenance is less frequent. They may update the document in a big way every 6 months or every year, perhaps never update it at all, and just let it expire after a year or two. The approach that my team has is much more that the authors are owners, and they take ownership from beginning to end. So they take the request, whether it comes from me or if it's an incremental request that comes from the business. And then they do their planning, they do the development, they do the publishing themselves. They have permission and the ability to do the publishing themselves. And then it's a continuous cycle. It may not be updates that happen every month. It could be updates happen on a daily basis. And it may be small changes that come in. So they have access to Acrolinks, so they're using Acrolinks throughout the cycle. I believe that's the end of my remarks, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.